What does Doctor Who Flux mean? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They're going to adapt my new favourite card game. Expect ever-changing rules and trying to collect, like, two related people and or things.
Listen carefully, we don't have much time. The Flux is coming. It's bringing with it the Sontarans, weeping angels, creatures known as the Ravagers, and enemies from across the universe. This is the fight of our lives.
Doctor, we need you!
I can't hold it much longer, Doctor! It's coming. Be ready.
No, but seriously, what is Doctor Who Flux? What is the Flux? That is what we're going to talk about today in this video. If you haven't been here before, I'm Phil. This is my channel. This is where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture that I enjoy, like, and consume. Things like Red Dwarf, got a Red Dwarf podcast. Things like the MCU, things like Star Trek, and of course, the staple of the channel, things like Doctor Who. So if you like any of that stuff, do click subscribe down below. Now, in typical fashion, I was away for the weekend at a lovely cottage in Kent with no Wi-Fi signal when all of this stuff dropped. And I kind of intermittently got connection to Twitter and saw what was going on and realised, oh, all this is going on and I'm not going to be able to record a video about it for days. Oh well, never mind. But here we are, we've all gone over what was released, but what does it mean? What is the Flux? Let's talk about some theories. Now, we don't have much to go on, admittedly. So these are kind of wild out there theories that are just like, hey, could be this, could be this, could be pretty much anything, but let's theorize anyway, because why not? Quick summary of what we know so far. So last week there was part of the Find My Doctor thing. I think there was the end of that, there was a telephone number you could ring, to which, if you rang it, you heard this voicemail message.
You've reached the voicemail of...
The Doctor. If you're ringing this, it means enemies from across the universe have arrived on Earth, and the battle is coming imminently. Who did you see and where? I need as much information as possible. Protect yourself. It's coming. Be ready.
Enemies from across the universe are coming to Earth. That's the first bit of information we found out. And then throughout last week, there were these little, on BBC One, glitch-type intermissions, interruptions of other trailers and BBC One idents where the Doctor would look like she was trying to communicate with us. And that culminated in the message that she got to us at the weekend.
Listen carefully, we don't have much time. The Flux is coming. It's bringing with it the Sontarans, weeping angels, creatures known as the Ravagers, and enemies from across the universe. This is the fight of our lives.
Doctor, we need you!
I can't hold it much longer, Doctor! It's coming. Be ready.
The Flux is coming. And it's bringing the Sontarans, the weeping angels, both recurring villains which we knew because we'd seen filming that they were coming back, but the BBC hadn't actively confirmed them. The closest they got was last week when they showed a picture of a Sontaran ship in the sky, but even then, they weren't using the word Sontaran. This is the first time official BBC stuff about Series 13 has mentioned the word Sontaran. So, Sontarans, weeping angels, and a new race called the Ravagers. Probably not the same Ravagers from the Big Finish 9th Doctor audios. Although, hey, if it is, cool. But if it's... probably not, to be honest. There's not usually that level of cooperation between Big Finish and the current series that would happen. But hey, look, I would love it if it was. I just think it's unlikely. So what is the Flux that is bringing these races, and possibly others, to Earth? I've got a few theories. Let me know in the comments below if you think any of them are more likely than others. If you've got your own theories, which is your favourite, let me know all of that in the comments below. So, the word flux, anyway. What does that word mean to us when we hear the word flux? Well, you know, you often hear in time travel stories about time being in flux. Things are changing. The word flux means things are changing, they haven't quite settled yet. That can be applied to history, that can be applied to various other sciencey things, but that's kind of generally what the word means. Things that are changing haven't settled yet. So, one possible explanation is it is something, some kind of natural phenomenon. that is changing history. Maybe some kind of tidal wave through the universe, some kind of tidal wave through time that is picking up various races along its way and depositing them for some reason on Earth. A natural phenomenon. I cannot say that word. Phenomenon. A natural phenomenon. This could be interesting. I mean, it's certainly a way to include all of the races that we've had mentioned so far without overloading us with another one to have to cram in there as well. We've only got 6 episodes, so if we've got multiple returning villains, plus this is all one story, and a new villain on top of the new potential Ravengers as well, that's a lot. Maybe if they tried to cram in an overarching villain called the Flux or something, that would be too much, and we would not get enough time with each of those villains. Possibly. Alternatively, you may be thinking, well, that would be a negative, it being a natural phenomenon, because you want a big bad, you want some kind of intelligence behind whatever's going to happen, and it not to be just some kind of random happenstance that the universe, due to its state, natural state, just deposits upon the Doctor. So we've got the natural phenomenon aspect of it. Possibly it's an artificial phenomenon. The Flux isn't a person or a race, but is something that has been engineered by a race. Who that race might be could be anyone. It could be any of the races that were mentioned already. The Ravagers as new ones, possibly the Weeping Angels or the Sontarans. Or possibly it's somebody we haven't even heard mentioned yet. Or possibly it's a callback to something from Chibnall's earlier bit of his era. We haven't heard anything from the Stenza for quite a while. They were featured, quite a lot in Series 1 when you think about it, because there was obviously Tim Shah in Episode 1 of the first of Series 11. Then in Episode 2, that planet they were on was an old Stenza outpost where they had been doing lots of experimentation with various things, various types of weapons. Perhaps whatever causes the Flux was one of these weapons. And then, again, Tim Shaw turns up at the... Simsha turns up at the end for the slightly underwhelming season finale. Now, to me, that seemed to be setting up the Stenza as the reoccurring villain of the Chibnall era, and then we never heard anything about them in Series 12 at all, which seemed a bit strange to me. So I wonder if this is the culmination of the Stenza plan, and maybe they're going to bring that in here, or maybe he was never planning to use the Stenza Plus Series 11, or possibly the bad reception that the Stenza got dissuaded him from his original plan, and he hasn't stuck to his original plan as precisely as he would have. But the Stenza are a potential, at least, for a race that maybe have engineered something called the Flux, which is sweeping up people and depositing them on Earth. Races, enemies on Earth. The next option is that the Flux are a race themselves. Again, given the name, changing... Flux means things in a process of changing but not quite finished changing, always changing. Maybe they are a species that go around changing things. Maybe they change the timeline. Maybe that's going to tie into the Doctor's history somehow. Or maybe they are a race themselves which are constantly changing, which is possibly linking back to the Timeless Children. Because, again, even more so than the Stenza, it would be very strange for Chibnall not to do anything more with the Timeless Child story thread that he has established here. He's left us with a massive mystery, and while, sure, I would expect some mystery to be left at the end of it, I feel that he's got more to do there, and that's an arc that hasn't finished playing out. And potentially, a species that constantly changes their face might be called the Flux, because they are constantly in flux, they're never settling in one body, they are constantly changing. So maybe the Flux are the Timeless Child's original species. Now, whether or not the Timeless Child is the Doctor is a completely another thing, so I'm not going to refer to it as the Doctor's real species, because I think there's a possibility that maybe Chibnall's got another another hand to play there, and it's not actually the Doctor that is the Timeless Child. I made a whole video about that a while back, a theory video, that actually the Doctor is Tecteun and not the Timeless Child. Go check that out if you've got time. So it could be the Timeless Child's race. It could be another as yet unseen race from another dimension that, again, maybe either like changing timelines or changes themselves quite a lot. Could be the Stenza. Maybe this is a future incarnation of the Stenza that have gone on to change and evolve, and they have become this thing they call the Flux. That's probably the least likely. I think the Timeless Child species is probably more likely than that. Or my final option is, rather than it being a whole species, it could be an individual. It could be an individual of the Timeless Child species. Again, maybe their transformations go a bit further than the rest of their races, so they don't just regenerate when they die. Maybe there's something where they are constantly changing, and from moment to moment they're never quite the same. That could be another meaning of the Flux. It would be, effectively, if this was the case and they were someone from the Timeless Child's race, this would kind of be like, you know, the Rani or the Master or the Monk from that species. It would be a member of that species, or even a better approximation would actually be the 11 from Big Finish, where if you're unfamiliar with the 11, do go check out some of the audios with him in. He's a Time Lord, which has all of the consciousnesses of all of his previous incarnations in his head at the same time. Brilliant concept for a character. But maybe it's something more along like that kind of lines, where you've got this slightly crazy person who's gone slightly insane from changing all the time. That might be the Timeless Child species again, or again, it might be a brand new species, but it could be an individual. Or it could be somebody that's not from a wider species at all. It could be somebody that is just somehow come into being as this individual that isn't part of a wider species, is just a one-off person, a one-off entity of some kind that has consciousness, has agency, but so it's not a natural phenomenon in the same way, but has just come into being, maybe at the beginning of the universe, maybe in another dimension, something along those lines. Those are my main theories of what the Flux could be. Just other things to quickly mention off the back of this is that word swarm that Chris Chibnall mentioned earlier on. There are a lot of theories going around that stands for Sontar, like as an acronym, Sontarans, Weeping Angels, Ravenous, and M. Possibly people were speculating Master. We know the Master is going to be in the Centenary special. Maybe he shows up earlier for this series as well. And yeah, I think the Timeless Child is going to be a big part of this. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Timeless Child is going to link into this in any way, or do you think they're moving away from that? Are the Flux the Timeless Child's race? Are they an individual from her race? Are they looking for her, maybe? Maybe after all this time, they finally come looking into another dimension from wherever they come from for that Timeless Child. And maybe that's how we find out it's not the Doctor. Possibly. Let me know your theories below and what you think of any of the options that I've come up with. Have I missed anything obvious? Do let me know in the comments below. And in the meantime, do like, share, subscribe and all that jazz for more Doctor Who content from me. See you soon. Bye-bye.